Hello, everyone, and especially you. Thank you for joining me today. One of the things that I enjoy doing is having conversations with open minded and curious people about money. I love hearing what they're doing with money, and I love sharing what I'm doing and learning about money as well. And today is no exception. What better topic to discuss than financial literacy? Specifically, we'll be examining the question, are you financially literate enough? Um, I love that question because it kind of sorts people into one of two camps. Could be in the first camp that is, you already feel as though you know enough, that there isn't anything that you can add to your knowledge that might benefit you in some way. And if that's the camp you're in, I hope things work out well for you. Now, if you happen to be in the second camp, like myself, and maybe a lot of other folks, that there's always more to learn, that you're curious, that you're hungry to improve what you're already doing, I think that you might benefit from this topic today. And before diving into financial literacy, it's important to give a little background and define the terms. Generally, financial literacy is studied by economists. Before beginning to study something, it usually helps to define it. Financial literacy is defined as the ability to understand and effectively use various financial skills. The skills early researchers thought of as basic building blocks of financial literacy were numeracy, which is the capacity to perform and understand simple math, inflation, an increase in prices and fall in the purchasing value of money, compounding, an increase in the initial value, but also the accumulated interest of an investment or loan, risk diversification, spreading money across different investments rather than concentrating it within a single investment. Early economists studying financial literacy settled on these four concepts because they were thought to be fundamental knowledge essential to most economic decisions. If people didn't get these concepts, it was much less likely they would know about more complex concepts. Having defined financial literacy and identified foundational concepts, economists then started devising questions to test financial literacy. The questions they devised came to be known as the Big Three. Sounds ominous, doesn't it? Or at least foreboding. Are you interested in taking the test? Good, because I'm about to give it to you. Question 1. Suppose you had $100 in a savings account and the interest rate was 2% per year. After 5 years, how much do you think you would have in the account if you left the money to grow? Possible answers are more than $102, exactly $102, less than $102, don't know, refuse to answer. This question tests numeracy. It also tests the understanding of interest rates and how those work. The correct answer is more than $102. Question 2. Imagine that the interest rate on your savings account was 1% per year and inflation was 2% per year. After year 1, how much would you be able to buy with the money in this account? Possible answers are more than today, less than today, don't know, and refuse to answer. This question tests understanding of inflation and interest rates. The correct answer is less than today. Question 3. Please tell me if this statement is true or false. Buying a single company's stock usually provides a safer return than a stock mutual fund. Possible answers are true, false, don't know, and refuse to answer. This question tests both familiarity with stock investing and risk diversification. The correct answer is false. So how'd you do? According to economists, if you manage to answer all three questions correctly, you are financially literate. Now, if you missed one or more questions, that means that you are not financially literate, and that's okay. Don't hit the panic button. Worldwide, 33% of adults are financially literate, and that percentage rises slightly in the US to 57% of adults are financially literate, but of course that means that 43% are not. Um, the thing to keep in mind is that we're all in the same boat, and I will get back to that point in a minute, but first, let's take a detour. I'm in my mid-50s, which makes me Gen Z. In middle and high school, I had some Spanish classes. They prepared me for nothing useful. I go on to complete my undergraduate and I earn a doctorate in pharmacy. By my mid-20s, I'm serving a community with a large immigrant population, most of which are Spanish speaking. I had to do the best I could to take care of everyone, so I had to learn a bit of Spanish. In those days, there was no Duolingo, so I had to learn using tapes, Pimsleur learning tapes on little cassettes. They taught me nothing useful as well. Learning how to say, where is the library or the pen is yellow, did do me one bit of good in the pharmacy. So it was about as practical as what I learned in middle and high school. Fortunately, I had a coworker that was from Cuba, and she was kind enough to help me learn a few pharmacy specific Spanish phrases. Okay, so this is going back about 30 years. Let's see what I can remember about a standard patient interaction in Espanol. Patient comes up to the counter. I say, hola, tiene recetas, fecha de nacimiento el paciente, gracias. En 15 minutos, por favor. I go behind the counter, prepare the prescription. Let's say it's an antibiotic prescription, suspension for a child. I would say una cucharadita cada 8 horas para 7 días. ¿Preguntas? No? Está bien. And that's it. I still got it. Maybe a little bit of it anyway. The patients might have sighed under the breath and said whatever the Latin American equivalent of bless his little heart, just bless it, as I mauled their language. But for the most part, people are encouraged by it. Whereas initially people would approach the counter timidly, hesitantly, visibly stressed and anxious, which wasn't right. Once it got out that I knew a little bit of Spanish, the whole dynamic in the pharmacy changed. The kids thought it was funny. The abuelas loved me. I think it was because they didn't think I was completely useless, that there was something there that they could work with. I could see the level of tension in my Spanish-speaking patients diminish, and that felt good. I think that they felt listened to and heard and valued, and they made me feel the same way. The key point I want you to take away is that it didn't take much specific education to make a tremendous difference in my patients' experience and their outcomes. Okay, let's take it back to financial literacy and talk outcomes. Researchers found, after examining the financial circumstances of study participants, those with low levels of financial literacy were those with a low level of financial literacy were found to be twice more likely to be debt constrained. Debt is inhibiting the ability to advance their financial interests. Perhaps they want to buy a home, but student loans are in the way. 3 times more likely to be financially fragile. That means an inability to come up with $400 immediately or $2,000 within 30 days. 3 times more likely to spend 10 or more hours per week on issues related to personal finances. 3 times more likely to lack any confidence in having sufficient money for a comfortable retirement. And 4 times more likely to lack 1 month of living expenses and emergency savings. Let's tie up the analogy. I started with an exceedingly low level of Spanish proficiency. What I learned in school helped me not one bit. Nada. After learning just a few phrases, it took my exceedingly low level of Spanish proficiency to a much higher, exceedingly low level of Spanish proficiency. I say a much higher level because I didn't learn all that much, but what I learned had an impact. It was useful to what I needed to do. Using 4 or 5 effective phrases was all it took. Think back to what you learned in middle school and high school with regard to building blocks of financial literacy, which were numeracy, inflation, compounding, and risk diversification. Let me share my experience. I was a B student through middle school and high school, nothing to write home about. What I learned about numeracy, sure, I took math throughout school. Compounding, that was a topic that we probably touched on in math in regards to a few problem sets or whatever, but never with regard to how it could impact my life. Inflation, same thing. I don't know that that was touched on at all, but if it were, maybe it was with regard to history class and the OPEC embargo or something. Stock investing, stocks were probably touched on with the Great Depression, so it was more of a history thing rather than an impact on your life and what you're going to experience through life kind of thing. And there was absolutely nothing at all that I recall learning about risk diversification. Yeah, nothing at all. Okay, so now we come to the payoff. You don't have to be truthful with me, but please be truthful with yourself. Given your formal education, our formal education around financial literacy and its foundational concepts, how likely are you to be fluent in it at all? Think about it. Unfortunately, in the US, we tend to equate a person's worth with their wealth. Those that are less wealthy tend to be viewed, or perhaps even view themselves, as lacking effort, discipline, desire, or even intelligence. They may even view themselves or others that don't possess such wealth as having poorer character than those that do. What if the lack of wealth has nothing to do with any of these things, character, desire, intelligence, effort, but we believe that they do? I suggest this. Consider the idea that poor outcomes financially have less to do with all those things and more to do with a person's level of understanding, your level of understanding. Just consider this idea. Now, if that's truly the case, or amongst the important factors leading into poor outcomes, then the fault may not reside in us, but in what we failed to learn or sufficiently learned. Levels of understanding can be changed. Earlier, I said it didn't matter how you performed on the big 3 because I thought we're all in the same boat. And here's what I meant. Everyone must continue to learn. Everyone must level up. Almost no one started off with the best formal education with regard to financial literacy. But as I've already pointed out, just learning a few well-chosen phrases or financial concepts can make a significant difference in the outcomes. Now, I don't know you, but I do know you have the capacity to deepen your understanding of concepts such as numeracy, inflation, compounding, and risk diversification. And as you deepen your understanding, you will likely better use your knowledge, which in turn will likely improve your outcomes. Maybe right now, your current relationship with money leaves you feeling timid or hesitant, stressed, or even anxious. That's not right, not for an entire lifetime. There are aspects of money that can be learned and, in fact, do require learning. So be bold. Continuously further your knowledge about money, these basic concepts, and more. Use what you learn and share it with others. Hi, I'm Bruce. I'm a mostly retired pharmacist married to an all the way retired pharmacist. I'm also a dad and an aspiring author. The year I retired, mostly, I wrote a book, and I'm finding it difficult to secure a publisher or literary agent. It seems that publishers and literary agents want nonfiction authors to have a following. So if you deem my content worthy, please like and subscribe. Thank you. Phrases, it took my exceedingly low level of Spanish, learning 4 or 5 phrases, changed it. Let's try this one more time because we're slow like that. Because they were thought to be fundamental knowledge, essential for most. Okay, let's take it back to financial literacy and talk outcomes. Reachers do what? I don't know what reachers do.